Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Property Manager. This is episode number 55. My name is Eric Worrell with rentprep.com, and I'm joined always by my co-host, Andrew Schultz. How you doing today, Andrew?
Doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I feel like I nailed the intro, which is
You
like
totally nailed the intro,
1 out of 4 max.
right?
Usually it's like, yes, I'm talking right now.
You got
Yes.
the episode number right and everything.
I,
Well, maybe.
some would say I'm a savant, All right. Well, we got a really good episode today. We've got 4 questions that you have picked out of the Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group. For anybody who maybe has never seen this before, I work for Rent Prep, which is a tenant screening company. Andrew is an associate broker. So you manage about 125 doors in the Western New York area.
Yep.
So I ask Andrew the questions and he answers them. That's about it.
That sounded really bigger pocketsy. You've got questions, we've got answers.
Yeah. Hey. I like their stuff. I should
start calling you Brandon Turner.
Yeah. Someday, 5-10 years from now, maybe. So, all right. Our first question. You know what? We'll start with a comment. Why not? Hi, Jen. How you doing?
Hey, Jennifer.
Anybody who has comments, questions, throw them up on the screen. We'll try to get to as many as we can, especially the questions. If you have any live questions, those are always fun to kind of answer on the spot.
Yeah. So, and then when you do that, just make sure you're going to the rentprep.com page.
Yep.
And putting your questions there. Otherwise, we don't see them during the broadcast, so we could miss them.
Yep. Okay. So we got a question from Gail. She says, how do you deal with helicopter parents of tenants? So we're getting emails from the mom, and rent payment is being split up from 3 different parents, being sent in 3 different times individually. And I think from the sounds of it in her lease, she had asked for all payments to be sent together as one payment. One of the other things she mentioned was the mom was emailing her about the lease, even though she shared it like 4 months ago with the tenant who's the son. She wants to deal with the tenants, not the parents. And, this is in this particular case, I believe it's college housing. So what are your thoughts on that question?
So I actually have quite a bit of experience with college housing. We had some college rentals that we managed for a decent chunk of time through several turnover cycles and everything else. So we've kind of run the gamut of crazy parents, good parents. Are you putting your bandana on right now?
Hell yeah, man.
Stand by one second. I think I have mine with me. I do.
You know what? I saw Debbie, and I know she's got a bandana. She said, good morning, gentlemen. And I was like, oh, I've got my bandana sitting here. I'm going to get the Brandon right.
There we go. Do I have mine on?
All right.
There we go.
All right. So you guys had college housing. You're familiar with helicopter parents. How do you handle it?
My office manager is laughing at me. Yeah. You got to send me the link where you got these so I can get some for our company too.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So college housing. So you've got a couple of different factors at play here. So if the student is on the lease alone and they're not using a guarantor, like you don't have the parents on the lease as a guarantor, technically you have no responsibility to that parent to disclose anything to them, whether they are paying the rent or not, whether the check's coming in the parent's name or whatever. If they're not on the lease and they're not listed as a guarantor, you have no obligation to discuss anything about that tenancy with that parent. The student is an adult. They're at least 18 because they signed a lease. You have no responsibility to disclose anything to that parent. You might find yourself in hot water if you disclose things to the parent because they're not a party to the lease. The flip side to that coin is if you are on a guarantor agreement with the parent, they're a party to the lease at that point. And at that point, you're going to want to have open and honest discussion with them just the same way you would with the tenant. What you can do for a lot of the questions that the parent is posing is tell them that they need to have their son or daughter contact you to deal with it. Especially if it's like a maintenance concern or something like that. A parent's never going to have all the information. A student's going to be there where they can look at the problem, figure out what the best course of action is while they're talking on the phone with you and go from there. So, it's basically, it boils down to, is the parent party to the lease or not? If they're not a party to the lease, there's no reason to have any conversation with them. If they are a party to the lease, then you're pretty much stuck talking to them.
Yeah.
And that's where I would leave it. I try not to over disclose anything to anybody outside of the lease.
Well, I think one of the things too, because they might be submitting the payment, you feel like you got to talk to them on that stuff. But even if you're at, a job sometimes and somebody keeps like coming at you with the same questions and you've already answered it, like you can be the person who says, hey, I emailed you that a week ago, or you can be the person that emails them every time they ask.
Right.
Yeah. Just tell them, hey, yeah, I provided that information to your son. please ask your son for that information, because you're just
Absolutely.
going to train them for you to be that medium of information where that information has already been disseminated to their child. So
Yeah. Student rentals are a tough thing to manage because it's essentially the same as having, if you have one 3-bedroom house, you basically have 3 different tenants with 3 different sets of concerns, as opposed to one family that's rented a house and you only have one tenant that you're, basically dealing with. It's very, very time consuming and very, very labor intensive to handle student rentals. So
yeah,
I saw that Jennifer had made a comment there about the
was it 18 and
leasing.
up? She said
18
18
and
and up,
up,
they
she's an
sign the
adult, or
lease.
she
They
or
need
he,
to
I guess.
handle it. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. She also had said lease has been signed. No longer time for negotiation of what's in it now. Wonder what the parents have an issue with on the lease. All
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
I mean, yeah, there's helicopter parents, and there's also just, I think every parent probably dropping their freshman off at college is a helicopter parent to a degree.
Oh
So
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Actually, I just read an interesting article about helicopter parents to go off task. And it was talking about trying to buck the trend, and they're talking about free range parents.
Free
And
range
it was
parents.
interesting to me, like having a little one and now thinking about these things in the future of like how to be with them, But it
Right.
basically was saying that it's really tough to be a free range parent where you give your kid the responsibility to just go off and do things on their own, because you get
Mhm.
judged by other parents so much, to where things might have been normal years ago.
Mhm.
So maybe it's not the helicopter parents problem, maybe it's a societal problem, Andrew.
Well, when I was growing up, I lived out in the country,
Yeah.
and we were basically like during the summer, we were sent outside and told, "Don't come home until it's time to eat or until the street lights come on." And I came out okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's not go on too far of a tangent there.
Right.
Although I love a good tangent. So Natalie asks, so I believe Natalie's a landlord and a real estate agent, if I can recall correctly, but she said, would you ever rent to someone who had decent credit and an offer in to buy your property before closing? So why or why not? Buyer wants to move in ASAP, but can't close on the FHA loan for 45 days. Buyer is willing to wait to move, but property is listed for sale and for rent. And I think you kind of were thinking about this as a rent to own situation potentially.
So I'm reading through this again. Properties listed for sale and or rent. So they want to. I'm reading this as they want to buy the property, but they'd like to move in sooner than that while the closing process is taking place. The way I would probably handle this, and I'm not sure because there's a lot of pieces of information we don't have here. I don't know if there's already a contract on the property, like they're already in the process of buying the property, or if they haven't written that contract yet or whatever. Um, Typically, what I would do in a situation like this would be if it's already under contract, this buyer's purchasing the home and they just need to rent prior to closing.
Mm-hmm.
That's very common. It happens quite a bit simply because people's life timeline doesn't necessarily correlate to the closing calendar at the county courthouse.
Yep.
You can do a short-term lease on the property for the person, and just state that the lease expires basically at the time that the property closes. I would certainly have them put down a security deposit, and I would certainly have them paying rent right up until the point where the property closes,
Mm-hmm.
and then just refund the security deposit to them on the closing statement so that they get their money back that way.
Okay.
It's pretty common to do something like that. It's not, it's not totally crazy for that to be the case.
Well, I think
Just make sure that
Natalie,
you cover yourself well on the lease in case the closing doesn't happen, because now you're stuck with a tenant, whether you wanted that tenant or not. That tenant has legal right to the property with their lease. So just make sure that you know what your lease terms are or whatever the case may be, so you don't get stuck on the back end with a tenant after they fail to purchase the property.
yeah, I think that's a great point because, you don't really care as much about a buyer, how they're going to treat the house once it's sold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you get a bad renter in there, for sure, that'll give you a headache. So,
Mhm.
gotta love the internet. Michael Burrows shared the link to the article I read, right, which I didn't even tell him what article it was, but it was from NPR. So if I had to guess, I'm going to say Michael is a Redditor because it was on the front page of Reddit. So that'd be my guess. So yeah, if anyone's interested in talking about free range parenting, you can check out that NPR link that's in the comments below.
Nice.
So we know what, we're branching out. Enough of this property management stuff. We're going to talk about parenting. Two people who know very little about it. Just give our opinions.
Well, you know more than I do. I know nothing.
I don't know anything about how to parent somebody older than one.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's
All
all the
right.
experience you need at this point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, day by day. I cry myself to sleep every night. Uh, All right. So we got a question from Maria. She has a judgment question. She says that her former tenant, who she evicted for non-payment, contacted her today, which was probably like yesterday or a few days ago. She
Right.
said that she wants to pay her debt, which is around $2,000 plus percentages, which I got a question on the percentages. And then what is the best way to do it? So she's saying, is it, for her to pay the court or her paying me directly or some other way? If she pays me directly, do I need to file with the court that the judgment is satisfied? How much does it cost? So she's got all sorts of questions. How do you, Andrew, handle when you get a judgment from a former tenant? How do you handle that payment?
I mean, if somebody wants to hand me money, I'm certainly never going to say no. What I would do in this instance is make sure that you get the money in some kind of a certified format, whether it's cash, money order, bank check, whatever the case may be. Get your money certified so that you know that you actually have the money. Don't take a personal check or something like that that's going to turn around and bounce and cause you all these other headaches.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have the funds in hand, talk to the court. You may have to file, in New York, it's called a satisfaction of judgment. So what that means is you basically file a paper with the court. It's like a one-page document just stating that the judgment's been satisfied, the tenant paid, or whatever the case may be. And that shows, it updates the court record, shows that the judgment has been satisfied. Might be different in different states because everybody seems to have a little bit different small claims court laws. So check with your state laws and see exactly what you have to do there. My recommendation would be get the money, write the tenant a receipt because they're going to want to be able to prove that they paid it in the event that you don't update the court records, and then just take care of whatever you need to take care of at the court level to make sure that that judgment shows is satisfied.
Right.
Chances are this person's trying to pay this judgment off because it's holding them back from doing something else that they want to do, whether it's buy a house, buy a car, get a loan, do something. There's some reason that they want to pay this off. It's probably not just because they're good people and out of the kindness of their heart. They're trying to do something, and you're holding them back from doing it with this judgment. So,
how do the percentages work?
I have no idea.
Okay, I was curious about that. I was like, is there some sort of like interest on the payment? That's what I'm assuming she meant by percentages.
That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, that's what I'm assuming as well. But I'm not sure how that would work or anything like that. I'm not sure how that would function.
So maybe there's a rule there that if you're going to pay a judgment, it has to have some sort of interest on it in Washington. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm honestly not sure. I don't know any of the laws of Washington, and small claims laws are one of the few areas that I don't know a whole lot about in the state of New York even. Yeah. Typically what we'll do is we'll call our attorney that does our evictions for us, and we'll ask him the question, and usually get a response from him that way.
Okay. All right. This fourth and final question comes from one of my favorite names in the group, McTurfers. I love it when it's not like a real name. I got to go. McTurfers asks, he says, how many people have it written in their lease that upon moving out, the tenants must have the carpets professionally cleaned and provide receipt of proof? Mm-hmm. Wondering if that policy is typical or we are the exception. Well, I'm going to guess that they're probably the exception because it's like a pretty, it's a pretty professional term to have in your lease. But Andrew, I know that you have a ton of experience with this. What did you think of when you read this question?
So we do have it in our lease that the tenant has to have the carpets professionally steam cleaned by a truck-mounted steam cleaner. We don't want them going and grabbing a rug doctor or Abyssal or something like that, because when those are used, they actually have a tendency to leave more of the residue and stuff in the carpet. 2 weeks later, after walking over the leftover residue, it sits and attracts all the dust and dirt from just walking around and living, and the carpets wind up looking worse than when you started. So we always recommend, and we actually give all of our tenants the name and phone number for the people who do our carpets for us. Yep. And we tell them, if you call them and say you're a Realty Edge tenant, you will get probably a 10% discount or whatever. It encourages them to go and spend the money on their own rather than you spending it out of the security deposit and dealing with all the back end paperwork and everything that goes along with it. The only thing that we ask is that they provide us with a copy of the receipt showing that the work was done. If we don't get a receipt, then we just go ahead and do the work ourselves and take it off of the security deposit. But it's written right into our lease that they have to be, it has to be professionally done by a truck mounted steam cleaner.
Now, I know that you're pretty thorough through the lease process of like going page by page and explaining everything. I'm assuming that kind of helps you out as far as running into like really angry tenants later on.
Mhm.
I could see if you have this in your lease, you don't want to like gloss over it with the tenant because maybe they don't read it because it's 10 pages or whatever.
Right, right.
Have you ever had any pretty angry tenants on the way out about this or?
I mean, anytime you charge a tenant something off their security deposit, every tenant thinks that they're giving you back the Taj Mahal. And it's just, more often than not, it's not the case. Anytime you charge a tenant anything off their security deposit, they're going to be annoyed about it. There's no getting around that.
Mhm.
The best you can do is try to explain to them on the front end at the lease signing, this is what we expect when we get the property back. You can send them a document when they notify you that they're moving. You can send them a document letting them know this is how we expect the apartment to be cleaned and give them a very detailed list. And if they don't follow it, they chose not to follow it. It's not that it's not that you forced them to clean. It's their filth. They brought it with them. They should be taking it on the way out.
Mhm.
So that's probably the best way to handle it is just making sure everything's covered up front. And you'd actually mentioned going through the lease too. One thing that I'm going to bring up that I don't typically mention, we actually require every tenant to initial at the bottom of every page of the lease so that there's never a question of, oh, I never saw that. Well, you must have seen it because you initialed the page. It's on paper. You did this.
Mhm.
So that's how we handle it.
Yeah. What was it? Jen had brought up a point. She said all states just say that the place has to be left broom swept. So basically free of tenants' property and swept, no trash, pretty much the same way they got it, minus wear and tear.
Mhm.
I mean, what you're suggesting is obviously from the mindset of broom swept is a little bit more advanced than that, but it's
Right.
not like it's illegal because you guys have a contract and that's what you guys agreed to at the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, we request it better than broom clean. The concept of broom clean is too vague, so we spell it out.
Mhm.
And we probably go above and beyond what broom clean would be. Realistically speaking, if a tenant turns over a clean apartment to me, I'm thrilled. But the chances of that happening are 50-50 at best, I would say. Probably less than that.
Yeah. All right. And I think we've talked about that actually before. Where some people have really good success in giving like a move out checklist to the tenants and like, this is
Mhm.
how you get your full security deposit back. I want to give you a full security deposit
Right,
back.
exactly.
This is how it happens. So
Mhm.
one of those checklists can probably go a long way too. So
No, absolutely. And having a in-depth checklist, once you have it once, it's very easy to just save it and use it time and time again. So
mhm.
it's one of those things that, landlord forms a lot of times you can get them once, get them squared away, and then you never have to worry about it again.
Yep. All right. Cool. Well, that concludes. What is this, episode 55?
55, yep.
All right.
You want to plug
Nice.
some stuff while we're on here?
Yeah. What do you got?
All right, I'm going to plug my Facebook page, facebook.com/Buffalo Foreclosed Homes, or if you're just searching for it, it's Buffalo Foreclosures ampersand investment properties. You can also find it pretty much. You see me looking at my other screen. That's why I'm looking in the other direction here.
What is it? It's Buffalo Foreclosures and
Buffalo Foreclosures and Investment Properties.
Investment Properties. All right.
Yep,
Let's see if I can spell everything right. This is a lot of pressure on me.
there you go. I'll throw a link in the. If you go to the Rent Prep page, I'll throw a link in there so that you can follow that as well.
I'm curious. Do you have a lot of out of town? I know you got actually even investors in Canada, but do you have a lot of them like far away or no?
Oh yeah, I would say probably most of our client base is not local to the area. I think that we only have a couple of owners that are local to the area at this point.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the nice things is you have your realtor's license, so you can kind of go through the whole process with somebody as far as getting them the properties, closing the properties, managing the
Mhm.
properties. So
Yeah, we can build basically a turnkey solution for somebody. If they have funds and they want to start investing, we can help them find the properties. I'm obviously not going to refer them to a property that I don't want to manage.
yep,
So we kind of build the entire solution for somebody so that they can begin investing with as much or as little, hands-on as they want, which is kind of nice.
yeah,
And then, do we want to talk about a couple weeks from now?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So Eric and Steve and Rich
Yep.
and I are going to go to the Florida NARPM convention, which
Why
is
not?
the 20th and 21st. I'm pretty excited about that, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm super pumped for that. But that's 2 weeks out. That'll be the 20th and 21st of September, which is a Thursday and Friday. We are actually the 15th, which is next Saturday, is actually the 1 year anniversary of us doing these Ask a Property Manager episodes.
what are you getting there?
So I don't know. I got you that clapperboard.
Yeah, that's true.
You
It's
still
at my
have
office. I'm at the home office right now.
the home office. Um, so I think we're going to try to do something while we're down there. I don't know what it's going to be yet. We haven't really talked about it, but I think we're going to try to do something a little bit different for the NARPM convention while we're down there.
Yeah, and if anybody's watching this from Florida or that area and you happen to be going to it, it's in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
A couple podcast guests, Scott and Kim Hampton, are in charge of like setting that up because she's the
Mm-hmm.
president of the NARPM Florida chapter. So it
Yep.
should be a good time. We'll be roaming around, probably have a goofy headband on sometimes. Why not?
There's going to be some great speakers too. If I think you can still register for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some great speakers. I know Mark Cunningham's there. Mark's really dynamic, great property manager.
Brad
The
Larson.
gentleman, yep, Brad Larson. I was trying to find the name and it was just not there. Brad Larson's going to be there. Brad's awesome. He's been on an Ask a Property Manager episode, and I think you had him on a podcast too, right?
Yep.
Trying to remember who else. There's quite a few guys that are going to be there that are going to be really solid. So if you are in the property management industry, if you're looking to expand, grow, learn, it sounds like this is an excellent opportunity to learn from some of the best in the industry. And while you're there, you get to see Eric and myself and Stephen Rich. So that'll be good.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. So hopefully, I mean, it'll be great if we see people from the group. That'll be awesome. It'll be fun to kind of meet people out in person, get out of an office.
Yeah, right.
You get out a little bit, Andrew. I'm like a caged monkey. I just, yeah.
That's probably for the best, though. I feel like you shouldn't be released to the wild.
Before we leave,
Mm-hmm.
let me see. I think Debbie had a good question on carpets. She said, "Is there a time frame like 5 years that you don't charge them for the carpet cleaning? I mean, if they've been a tenant for a real long time." I think it's a good question because, like, painting a room or something, if they've been there 5-10 years, you might just say, "Hey, we're just going to paint it. We're not going to charge them."
Yeah, I mean, if the carpet's past the point where the useful life is, it's just shot. If you're going to be replacing the carpets anyway, it's just past its usable life. Some states have different rules on this. Technically, I think what you're supposed to do is depreciate the cost of the carpet over whatever the usable lifespan is considered to be. And then from that point, you could back bill just that remaining portion back to the tenant as part of their security deposit or whatever. But for carpet cleaning is just considered maintenance. So we would just go ahead and bill that all together. 5 years. 5 years, you could still have carpets that are in really good shape, or you could have carpets that are completely destroyed. It's just a matter of how well did the tenant take care of them. So,
okay, cool. Yuri Nitsi, I hope I'm saying that right, asked about the link for the convention. I will find that. I will message you a link for that if you're interested in going. So, if anybody's interested, feel free to message me on Facebook or shoot me an email at eric@rentprep.com, and I can get you guys that information.
Yeah, it should be a good day. It should be a couple of good days. It's a long convention though. The first day is, I think, registration starts 7:30, and it basically runs until, I think, the convention itself or the sessions themselves run until like 5, and then there's a couple of events after. I don't know what you guys are doing for that. And then the second day it runs, I want to say 8 to 4, and then I'm out of there. I'm on a plane back to Buffalo Friday night. So
yeah, same here.
So
all right. Cool. Well, until next week, Andrew, you have a fantastic week.
You as well.
All right. Take care.